capitalism is about profiting off commodities. You make profit off the commodity, you sell at a profit, obviously, and thus gain or accrue more capital for yourself. Hence the name capitalism. And lots of people obviously endorse the system. It's a system we have globally. And while there are regulations, at core, the main idea of the capitalism is still present. But is this a just and fair system to use? Is profiting off commodities a good idea? Now, immediately you might think, yes, it's a good idea if I want to sell this at a higher price to be able to have more money for myself. But really think about what you're doing when you sell something at a profit, when you participate in the capitalist mode of sales and transactions. You are taking someone else's labour and profiting of it, thus shorting them of the produce of their labour, making their experience worse, causing them to suffer through your own gain, despite you not having done the labour that was required to make your transaction possible. Now, when I say this, people are going to say, oh, well, no, that's not the case. I did the risk, I earned the money, I did this and that. And they can be, it's hushed, to be honest, because they're wrong. Imagine, for instance, you sell a phone, and you sell that phone, and maybe you set up the shop, and you set up the store, and you have the phone, and you sell it, and you think, oh, well, this money is all mine because I sold it. It's my phone, I gave it to someone else for a price, and it ends there. Well, it didn't end there, did it? Because your phone, to get to you, had to travel to the shop that you bought it from, and someone at the shop sold it to you, so their labour helped. The person who transported it from a factory distribution centre to the shop, their labour counted. The person who shipped it from its production in maybe like China or Malaysia or Indonesia to a Western factory somewhere, a Western port, their labour was counted. The people who made it in the factory in Malaysia or China or in the Far East somewhere, their labour counts. The people who got those materials to make the phone, their labour counts. And obviously material in the phone is like lots of different elements and lots of different alloys. So, that's a lot of labour. All that labour is what made your phone. It's not just you selling the phone, it's the labour of everyone who came before you. But your profit from that is the cause, the product even, of the labour that came before you. Their labour hours were crucial in making the transaction you just did. So the money you've made from it is money stolen from the labour of everyone who came before you. And you can apply this to any situation in society. You sell some food. Perhaps, you may have grown the tomato yourself, but the tomato seeds came from tomatoes grown in other places through other labour, and to truly claim the transaction and land as your own is incorrect. You make a game on a computer, on Xbox or something. Yeah, fine, you made the game, that's brilliant, you're a good developer. But who made your Xbox? Who made your computer? Who made it possible for you to make the tools that you are now selling? No action of labour is independent entirely of everyone else. You need the labour of other people to survive and to be able to do anything in the world. Yet, at the same time, it's the labour of the workers who produce the product and the wealth of the capitalists, or the position of the capitalists, to then profit off that labour. And the system isn't really fair. Like, you look at what goes on at, we go back to the phone example I mentioned, do the people who make the phones get any of the produce that Apple have, any of the capital that Apple have as a result of selling millions of iPhones? Not at all. People working in sweatshops in the Far East and in the Third World receive a fraction of what people in Apple's higher tiers receive in years, in seconds even. The people who are working at the lower level factories, who are responsible for the production of the iPhone, do not receive the fruits of the labour. That all goes to the CEOs and the higher-ups. And you can say, oh, well, it was their innovation. But firstly, their innovation would not have been possible without the labour of everyone else beneath them. And secondly, they were in that position in the first place because of the wealth of everyone else. They were able to buy the company because their wealth has come through the labour of others. No one just has wealth to begin with. It's always come from someone else's labour. It's always come from taking and profiting off the labour of other people. So to claim that profit, is a fair thing and people deserve to be rich through their actions is somewhat misleading, and in fact is misleading, is unfair, because you need to profit off something to exploit and profit off the labour of other people. And essentially, to argue that this is okay is to argue that someone else's work should be taken credit for yourself. And that's not okay. Imagine if you did something and then someone else took credit for it and then took the wealth for it and gave you a little bit back. That is essentially what capitalism is. Profiting off the commodity, which is labour hours in this case, and then benefiting your own situation, your own capital, at the negative and negating the position of others. And it infects and affects everything in our society. From phones, I mentioned, food, products, even politics, even just the day-to-day actions of our system. You look at the wealth of those on top, and it's always going to come from the labour of those on the bottom. No one just earns their wealth just by virtue of being born. Their wealth had to have come from the labour of people around them, the workers who did the work. And ultimately, it isn't a fair system if we're basing our society on profiting off the labour of other people, saying, no, you are a worker and I have the right to take your labour and work my own profits from it, when in reality that is not a fair way of making a society. And ultimately, if we continue to maintain this system of class tiering, what are we going to amount to? Anything but fascism and the feudalism of the past, where perhaps, yeah, we've got more technology and we've got higher quality of living, but we're still in the sort of class system of a ruling class and a dominated class, where people have to work for their overlords and see little return for it. Because you have to look at the number of corporations like Apple, like Amazon, who can rake in trillions of profits, of wealth, and would not exist without the workers underneath. So really, you need to analyse and take a closer look at where these profits come from, because without any effort from the workers and without any production from the workers, you can't have the products that make corporations billions. And the entire ideas and premises about capitalism, about profiting off commodities, are therefore flawed and ought to be questioned and really considered worth having in society.